Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Truth Quest. My name is Aaron Moriarty. I will be your host, and we're going to go on a quest for truth together. And today, friends, we've got a very special guest for you, Jeremy Ray. Yes, he's the star, one of the stars of Hangar One. He's a Mufon investigator, and you've probably seen him on Red Pill 78. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to the show. It's an honor, sir.
Well, the pleasure is all mine, I assure you. Now, when us normal people are thinking about UFOs, I mean, you belong to Mufon. Now, Mufon is a worldwide organization. They're not tied to any government, right?
Correct.
And you got like 50,000 different files in your coffers.
Way more, but yes, pretty good guess. I think it's 70,000 what the show said, but we've got a lot more. So,
wow, fantastic. And now, how much training does it take to be a Mufon investigator?
Well, you actually, the way I look at it is I'm still training, and I've been with Mufon for so long. For me, it's so long. I've been with them for, I think, almost 17 years, and I'm still learning. This phenomenon is or if you want to call it a phenomenon, is it's not just about nuts and bolts craft, and sometimes trying to come down to a scientific explanation, you don't have that option. And there's things that are so strange that I don't know how to. I'm talking on a grand scale here, that you're always constantly learning. So as an investigator, you know how to approach people and investigate, and definitely don't lead the witness. That's like one of my pet peeves. Don't do that. Is important, but you learn that through experience. So how many cases you've done, you might get really good training, and then you go on your first case and you drop the ball. That's, but on your 10th and 11th case, you kind of get an idea of how this flows, and then it just becomes second nature. And then, like I say, you're like, I'm always trying to find new ways of investigating instead of just going to one website that I trust. There's always other apps and things out there that can help you narrow down some things. So not talking about aliens and stuff. Let's just say, like, a simple investigation. A woman films these fireballs in the sky, and it looks like a massive UFO fleet. It looks like a freaking invasion, right? Well, since I've done a lot of cases, I kind of seen this before, and I don't see no zigzags, right? Or things, all I see is they're kind of just floating there, and they're kind of all going together. Well, for me, that might have something to do with the wind. Okay. But of course I can't just throw in what I think it is. I have to figure out what it is. So this woman filmed this on a certain day. I checked the date, and I checked to see what was going on. I saw a park that was in the area, and I found out a wedding happened. And I don't know if I told you this story, but talked to the bride and groom. They gave me a copy of their videotape, but the reason why I wanted a copy of the videotape is because they released Chinese lanterns that day around that time. So when I got a copy of the videotape, I only took one section of it and took the audio out of it, and it just shows it in the sky leaving. And then I put that on YouTube, and then I sent it to the person that I'm investigating, and I say, was this what you saw? And they were like, that's exactly what I saw. But see, Chinese lanterns, I mean, they look like fire in the sky. If you see it with the naked eye, you don't see the paper. You just see a fireball. And it doesn't look like an airplane lights and things like that. So, of course, it's going to freak people out, especially when it's really high. But you can also get on a website called not Heavens Above, but Weather Underground, and you can look up historical data. All you got to do is put in the area that you're looking for. And yes, there's a 5-mile-an-hour wind that drifted over to this area. And then you can kind of pull up the Google image and then draw arrows where the wind direction was going, when they released this, and kind of estimate the time of where this lady was when this flew over. And if it sticks, it sticks. Sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, you kind of screwed there. You're going to have to find another. You're going to have to try. What we're trying to do is try to come up with a down-to-earth explanation of what people are seeing. And if we can't figure out what it is, or we've done our checklist, we'll label it as an unknown. And it doesn't mean it's an alien spaceship. It just means we went through our entire checklist, and we can't come up with an answer, or we don't have enough information. So we're just going to leave it as an unknown. Or that could also be insufficient data, but it's not recommended to do that. That just means you don't have enough information to complete the case. So it kind of keeps the case open. So you want to, does that make sense?
Yes.
Or, and then, yeah, and then there's also this other website I'd like to recommend to people out there. It's called Heavens Above, and that right there I use as a tool to track satellites. And sometimes people see these lights in the sky, or they'll see something traveling in a straight line path, and then it gets really bright, and then it disappears. And a lot of people are used to seeing this on TV, the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars taking off, or the Starship Enterprise charging their nacelles, their warp coil, and then boom, they're gone. So they think big bright light, and then it took off because the object gets smaller and smaller. But what you're seeing is a satellite that is tumbling, and the antenna is reflecting the sun. And you could track all that. It's called iridium flare, and you could track that on Heavens Above. It'll tell you the time and date on where you were standing and when it flared up. So if you can check those, that kind of helps. Also, there's another one called Flight Radar 24 or 24 Flight Radar. And you can check all the airplanes that flew over the area during that time. And I can go on and on and on about this tedious, boring stuff, because what we're really looking for is kind of like a treasure chest. You're searching for the gold, and sometimes I've had a few cases where it's a WTF moment where I know something truly extraordinary happened. And that's what we at Mufon live and breathe. That's why we get out and do this stuff.
Sure. Now, one question about Google Earth. Now, I have to imagine that someone on some level is recording every single inch at every single moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have access to?
I wish I did. I'm sorry to cut you off there. No, I think I know what you're saying. Like a CCTV camera that is recording and documenting everything that is moving, right? So wouldn't that be great if you had access to that and you wanted to find out if O.J. Simpson really killed his wife? Right. And you could just type in the coordinates, rewind it like a CCTV and go, well, there he is.
Solve every crime.
But why don't they use that to solve every crime? Maybe they use that for bigger problems. Maybe it's
because they're doing crimes they don't want to get caught at.
Or that too. That's a whole range of things. But let's talk about the UFO stuff. Let's say this is just speculation, but let's say I get a UFO case and I'm typing up in my Mufon CMS and I'm putting in the report. Mm-hmm. Well, Big Brother can get into anything, right? Mm-hmm. They can get into anything they want to get into. And let's say that there is an interest in this case. Mm-hmm. They could pull up the coordinates of this person and go, oh, they really are telling the truth because our satellites are seeing a disc-shaped craft above this person's house. Me as a Mufon investigator, I don't have those type of tools. That would be nice. Maybe that's why sometimes they beat us to some of our cases, which has happened. Here, give you a good example. This wasn't a case I did. I don't know the exact state or the person's name, but it was on several years ago, it was on the front page of one of our Mufon journals. We produced these monthly journals of top cases. Mm-hmm. And basically, this man was inside his house and his kids were out in the backyard and a UFO came and landed in his backyard. Okay. Wow. Just a disc-shaped craft, right? So he comes and tells kids get inside and the thing lifts up and leaves. So he follows a Mufon report. Okay. Well, by the time Mufon shows up at the house, he opens the door and goes, well, I just got done talking to you guys. You guys just left, right? Okay, this is how, right. So this man let two guys in that were impersonating that they were Mufon, and they weren't Mufon at all. Okay, so somebody got there first. So the investigators Mufon were like, well, we'd like to go over the case with you anyway. Can we go over? And it's like, well, I'm hungry or whatever. Let's leave. So they leave to go to a restaurant, eat, and talk about the case. Well, this man told the neighbors about what happened. So the neighbors are, looking out their windows and stuff. And all of a sudden, after the Mufon people left, these vans pull up, right? These vehicles that had U.S. government tags. I don't know if it was FEMA or whatever, but anyway, they wrote those numbers down. The neighbors did. And these men went into his backyard and were back there for a little bit and then got in the car and left. And then when Mufon came back with the guy that saw the object, they went in the backyard to check to see the evidence, and their whole backyard was burnt with some kind of chemical burn.
Wow.
They went back there and they cleaned that whole place up. So after that, I think somewhere in the article, and there was a big push by our international director that you need to tell the people when you're doing a Mufon case, that we need to have our badges and our IDs, you know what I mean? That says we're a Mufon investigator. And we need to show this to the person before, we need to instruct them, don't let anybody in your house. That can be like, yes, I'm a Mufon investigator. What happened here? And they just got dibs on our case and got there before we did.
So those were fake MUFON people.
Oh yeah, whoever they are. Yes,
Just
and those plates were fake
so
too.
they come in. Wow.
Those plates were fake too. They came back. There's no car with that tag kind of thing.
It must have been in a pretty legitimate report then.
Oh yeah, I wish I didn't know I was going to talk about that report today because I would pull it up and go over all the details. But that's basically it in a nutshell. Somebody beat us to the punch. They destroyed evidence, and then they get out of Dodge. How many times that happen? Not often, but it can. Especially if it's a real case. And this isn't. And UFOs, government wants to admit it or not, it's a national security issue, big time.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So
how could it not?
A part of me, I'm a soldier. I was in the United States Army. A part of me, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I feel like I'm doing my country a service by being in MUFON, not just for Americans in general, but for the whole world. I'm boots on the ground. And if I could find something that could help anybody out, whether it's national security or anything, this might be something real important. It's an honor for me to be a part of this. And that's the way I feel about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for your service.
Sure, thank you.
Both arenas.
Well, I kind of say that for an ego thing, that it gets me out of bed in the morning to continue to do what I do,
Very good. Very good.
Yes, sir.
Now, we talked about, we mentioned that now the UFO community is mourning the loss of Clifford Stone.
Clifford Stone. Good man.
You met the man.
Oh, yes, many times. Over a period of years, I'd always bump into him at symposiums, and he's very genuine, very nice. And he would always give me his undivided attention. And I might ask some questions that I'd never see anybody else ask him. I was ex-military, so I wanted to understand, how did you get this gig in the Army? Okay. I understand I got out of the Army in the 90s, and he was there. I don't know the exact years, but Armies changed over decades. Yeah. So some terminologies that he would use, I wasn't familiar with. But from what I gathered is they put him in a NBC, which is nuclear biological chemical unit, right? And I've been a part of that too. We train in NBC gear. And so I'm thinking on that scale, but what he was trying to tell me was, no, that's what they called it for the cover, but he was a crash retrieval guy that did crash retrieval operations of unknown objects that were not made here on Earth. Right. And their job was set up a security perimeter, sometimes extract dead or live entities. And there's a lot more that he probably knew that he didn't tell anybody, probably because he can't. But it's really a drag that he's gone, because it's like a library burned down, and I'm pretty sure there's many other people that were in his unit that, it would be really, I encourage people like that to come forward, because there's a history that's going on that we don't know anything about. And he brought that to the table. I remember back in the day when I knew him before. When I was in the Army, there was a book that was released called UFOs Are Real, and Here's the Proof. Okay. Real thick book. And I bought it at Walden Books or whatever. And it was written by Clifford Stone. I didn't know who Clifford Stone was during the time. Wow. Little did I know I was going to meet him in the future. But the whole entire book was government files. A lot of it was redacted. But for me in the 90s, this was awesome. You don't get to see anything like this. Yeah. And I tore that book apart. I even ripped pages out of it, things I thought were important. I had to go buy the book again. And then the big cheese for me was Stephen Greer did that press conference with Meet the Press type thing. Yes. Where he brought in all those whistleblowers, and Clifford Stone was one of them. Yeah. And Clifford Stone said that during the time when he was in, the United States Air Force categorized 57 different species. My mouth just, what?
Yep.
57. I've only heard of like 3 or 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the number is a lot more bigger than that. But but yeah, during the time he was there. And then when I saw him, I remember the first time I met Clifford Stone was July. I remember the date because it's easy to remember. It was July the 7th, 2007. So it's 777. Easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
And it was at the Roswell Museum. There was a Roswell event, and I was invited to go. And I went there, and Clifford was sitting at a table all by himself, and I was like, I saw him and I was like, man, nobody's going to talk to him. I'm going to go over there and talk to him. And I sat there and he said, pull up a chair. And I sat behind a table with him and we talked for hours and hours. I have a picture. I should have sent it to you. But that was a good time to me because you see these people on television or you read their books. And if you ever get a chance to meet them, there's always a line behind you. Okay. And you got blah, 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 and you're moving, right? Or can I get your autograph or thank you for your service? It's the only kind of conversation you're going to have. Right. But here it was just like sitting with one of the Joes. Like I felt like he was I have an uncle that passed away, but same mannerisms as him, and to me, I don't know, we both opened up and he told me a lot of things. A lot of it was very emotional for him. There was times where he would cry. Yes. It's kind of like talking to a war vet that's been in combat and they're talking about what they did and you think it's okay. And then they get to a part and they just break down. And there was many times he did that in front of me. I felt he was genuine and I always believed that he was telling the truth. And what an amazing life he had. Yeah. But to him, I don't think he was happy about the hush hush about the whole situation, right. And so that's a really heavy burden to carry on yourself.
Yeah. And he was always trying to get information declassified he was.
Well, hence that book that I'm telling you about. UFOs are real. Here's the proof. Yeah. That was, I think when he was trying to find information, he was still in the Army when he was doing it. He was getting in trouble by his superiors.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing asking about these UFO? I could just see that, man. I just know how it works. I've been in trouble a couple of times. It doesn't take much when you got red hair. Done a lot of push-ups in the Army, but
really,
but you know what I mean? It's really easy to get in trouble in the military. And I kind of feel like if I was asking for Freedom of Information Act while I'm in the Army, I would probably be in a lot of trouble. Sure. I'm pretty sure I'd be pulled in the first sergeant's office and maybe my captain would be there and God knows what they would tell me to do. You just do what they tell you to do, But some reason Clifford got away with a lot. He got away with a lot. And I had to ask him a couple of questions I thought were fishy about it, but he explained it to me perfectly and it all made sense. They can't really get him in trouble because that means that they're going to be acknowledging that this shit exists. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's kind of a thin line and he knew that and he used it. Actually, that DVD I gave you, Hangar One, he's actually, oh yeah, thanks. I'm glad it got there. So the one that's blue, or not blue, the other one that I gave you, that one right, there's two of them inside there. Yeah.
You even signed it. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. He's in that. He's in season 2. That one, that DVD right there.
Yeah.
He's in I think 2 or 3 of the shows. And some of his testimony is pretty explosive. So I strongly recommend that you check that out, unless you want me to tell you the story and spoil it for you. But
well, whatever you want to do. I mean,
yeah, I mean, there was one time where they had an entity in custody, and they would tell him that these are visitors, but they were mostly treated like prisoners, and they put him in like not a Faraday cage, but a cage that puts like a field around it. I don't know if it's electromagnetic. I don't know how it works, but it prevents from beaming like Star Trek, so they can't be rescued.
I see.
And his job was I forgot the terminology he used. It was like an interfacer or something like that, to where he sits in front of the entity and they communicate. And then he would go report to his colonel. And during that time where he was talking to it, he could feel that the entity was scared. God, I wish he was alive today because he lived it and he could tell it a lot better. It's better to hear it from the man's mouth than secondhand information, but his testimony is in that show. And he basically says that, that the entity was scared and he was telling him, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you, you know. And he was like, no, I'm scared for you because my people are coming and if you don't let me go, they're going to kill all of y'all. And he could, you know, it's mind to mind thing. So he could see what's going on in his head. And he decided to not tell his superior and he broke that thing out of jail. I don't know if you know about this.
Yes,
have you heard about this story?
I've heard a beautiful story. Yeah, it's a great story.
So we talk about that in Hangar 1, and you would think that they would throw him. They got him out. He told that the ET is not going to talk until everybody leaves the facility. The colonel didn't like it too much, but he said, go for it. And I can't remember if he had somebody cut a chain link fence or he did it.
Yeah.
But he got the being out and they ran through the field. And when he got through, he cut the fence. And I think the military knew that something was up and they were after him. And he figured he was going to get shot. And so he let the being through. Being went through the fence and there was a flash of light. The being was gone. And then, of course, they brought him back to the office. And for some reason, the colonel slapped him on the wrist. You would think that they would just do maximum punishment to him, but he kind of felt that they had a situation that happened like this before, and the colonel probably knew that he probably saved the lives of all those soldiers in that building.
Yeah.
And he had to do what he had to do. But that's just one out of many stories from Clifford Stone. I strongly recommend that book that you showed up is excellent. There's also a lot of other video testimonies that he talks about.
Yes.
It's really, I can't really do it justice in an hour podcast, but I think he's the real deal.
Oh yeah.
I've always felt that way.
Very legitimate witness.
And it's so sad he's gone.
It's just very sad, very sad.
It's tragic. All the good people are leaving us. Yeah. Anyway,
we have to hold on the fort for him. Now that story always reminded me of Daniel Baresh's story too. You heard that?
Please refresh my memory. Sometimes I'm bad with names. David who?
Baresh. Daniel Baresh. I think doctor. He was like a microbiologist, very acclaimed, and he was working with the military with this J-rod.
Okay. Yeah, tell me the rest of the story, and it'll come to me in just a second.
Pushed him through this this portal to back to his home, so he could get to his home, and he got in trouble for that too. So, seems to be a recurring theme.
Oh wait. Clifford Stone had something like that happen to him.
Yes.
Yeah. He went down into the Pentagon. I think he went down in the Pentagon and there was an underground area and he was walking with somebody and he goes, you know, it's really interesting. That right there is a door. And Clifford was like, well, that's a wall. And he goes, well, not, you know, everything's hidden in plain sight type thing. And he pushed Clifford and Clifford went through that wall and fell down and saw, I think I'm correct, or I might be getting the names wrong, but he saw some graves back there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't that interesting?
That's fantastic.
I think it's Clifford Stone. If I'm wrong, I'm so sorry, but I believe that was another one of his testimony. But or you know,
yeah,
it's a great book.
It's
a great book, but there's a lot of things he has spoken. There's so many videos with Clifford that it would be really awesome if somebody out there, I would love to do it, grab every video everything that he's ever said and make a YouTube page out of it. That
would be great. That would be very good. A nice honor for all of his hard work over many, many years. I mean, this guy's
he's been involved in it before I got involved in it.
Yeah.
So
it's unreal. So I'm glad that he lived as long as he did and he got as much information out as he did. Now, in his personal experiences, he had interactions, I believe I'm remembering correctly, with a purple being, right? The being was purple. Oh.
Sorry, I'm muted. My bad.
There you go.
A purple entity. Could you refresh my
So he claims that when he was a child, he was visited by this being that was purple. I think it was purple. And when he told the story, other UFO researchers said, well, you better say it was gray. He says, no, it wasn't gray. Well, but you should. And he goes, no, I'm going to tell it like it is. So he was a very honest guy. You know, even if his story wouldn't link up with all these other stories, he wanted to tell the truth, which I think is honorable.
Do you remember back in the 50s, it was little green men, little green men, little
Sure,
green
yeah.
men? I'm pretty sure the military, when they got their calls, little green man, they'd hang up on it. But when someone goes, it wasn't green, it was gray, red alert, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, right.
Probably that's how it's done. You know, somebody gives a description that's not out there in the information out there, no matter if it's on the internet, they describe something that only key people in the world know it's real. Well, then that sets off an alarm to go investigate. So a purple being.
Yeah.
And then I think later on through life, when he was a kid, he was approached by a colonel at a store where he was looking at a book about UFOs. And he kind of felt like that they knew his background and they were kind of grooming him, getting ready, because they know that he's going to be something important to deal with this kind of situation in the future.
Sure.
That's what he always believed that. And you know what? I don't deny that one bit.
Exactly.
Life somehow works out that way for some strange reason. You know, you might not make sense of it in the beginning, but then you get older and you look back on it and then all the pieces start to come together. And I'm pretty sure he had a lot more to say, but
he probably did. But he did say a lot. I mean, that 57 different entities, that was bombshell at the time, 2001, at the
World Press Club or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Over 100 people all telling what they knew. You know, it's amazing that they've been able to keep people in the dark so much. But let's focus back on your investigations now.
Sure.
Is there anything that you just got word of recently that looks like an exciting one that you're
sure? Yeah.
And can you talk about that?
Well, I've been told I'm actually done with the case, but it needs to be sent to a different team. But I'll tell you without telling people's names and the location and all that. I'll tell you what's been going on. So an individual, or actually 4 eyewitnesses, have noticed over a period of time in about a year, then when they were driving out in the desert, they would always see this UFO that seemed to be following them. And I could spend your whole show talking about this case, but I'm just going to narrow down to like WTF moments. Okay. So there's a lot of things that they noticed that whatever these lights are seem to be getting closer, or follow them when they're in their car. Or one time they were out working and this UFO was over. So what they do is they cut down trees. And while they were out there doing it at night, they're not supposed to do it at night, but they were backlogged and they decided to work overnight to catch up. And one of the guys saw a UFO over the truck that was following the truck out there. And then as soon as they get out of the car, the light would turn off. And then when they get back in the car, the light would turn on. And so they have a lot of stories like this that are very, very interesting. But I'm going to get to the big one. So the one what happens is when you do a Mufon case, somebody will type up, I had a UFO incident and I saw an entity. Okay. So you get on the case and you're thinking, okay, one UFO incident and one entity. And I'm just going to be probably typing up about 3 or 4 pages. And they go, no, we have to kind of go back years ago. It was a momentum that got to this point. And then you got a whole story that I think I'll be able to solve this in a month. And I could spend a long time on it. It definitely is one of those cases where if I was retired right now, I'd be giving it all I got. But you know, I've got to kind of mush it all into one spot. And if they want to keep in contact with us and keep writing notes and stuff, we'll add it to the case file. But there's a lot of history here. Okay. So get that aside. This one UFO was tracking them about 2 mile distance off to the right while they were driving down a highway going over to a friend's house. And when they decided to get on they're changing the highway to go left or actually head up north, the UFO flew past them 2 miles, right? And once it got to the 2 mile point, it stayed with them. So here they are driving this way, UFO stays with them. They come to an intersection to go right. The UFO goes 2 miles out and then goes with them to the right, right? And they're watching it. And then they get halfway to their destination and there's this mountain. And instead of the UFO coming in front of the mountain, which would bring it closer to maybe a 1 mile distance, it goes around the mountain, doesn't go up above it. and it has to catch speed to catch back up to them where they're at to keep the same distance. Okay. So they noticed all that. They had their eyes. They got to their friend's house and they watched this UFO go behind a mountain, which is about 2 to 4 miles away. I'd say it's about 3. And they watch it go behind it and they think it landed because they could see the light from the background of the mountain. And they're kind of used to this stuff because they've been having all these sightings. They don't know what it is. So one of the guys, he has a little dog, a blue heeler dog, and it's a little puppy, and there's other dogs on the property. So he brings the dog out about an hour or 2 later to kind of let the other dog smell the puppy and get to know each other, and then have the dog use the restroom too. So while he's standing out there, he gets a feeling he's being watched. He looks up and there's this 3-foot, guess you can say, gray alien right by his truck, and his hand was over the so the truck is the back end of the truck. The alien's like where the tire's at, kind of hiding under the tire and the truck, and had his hand on the taillights. And as soon as he made eye contact with it, he described its head as like a watermelon, which is important because normal people, they don't say these, they're describing what they're seeing. And I've heard the watermelon before, a vertical watermelon head, this kind of not perfect, but, just imagine a watermelon turned vertical with black eyes, 2 dots for a nose and a slit. And once he made eye contact with it, he immediately had a thought process, or just like we were talking with Clifford Stone. And the thoughts that popped in his mind for that second was the entity was just as interested in him as he was of it during that moment. Second, it was curious of why he was messing with these dogs, kind of curious of the companionship of man and animal. Right. And third was that he's seen him before, or he knows who he is. So these thoughts come. So when you're seeing something that's not human and you get these thoughts in your head, you're either going to react one, or you got the fight and flight's going to kick in.
Sure.
And he went flight mode. So he had a choice to run back in the house, which is a good distance, or run towards a truck where the entity was at, which was closer. And he ran towards a truck. Okay. So the dogs freaked out. One of the big dogs was a Chow Husky mix. It was the biggest dog on the lot, probably the oldest. It was a big white dog, chased after the entity while he went to the truck to get inside and lock the doors. This thing, he said, it described, it ran so fast. Well, it ran like the legs were backwards like a grasshopper. Okay. Like kind of like a grasshopper legs were. And the way it ran like a sling blade runner, and it ran towards the fence line. The dog chased after it. And then the entity stopped, turned around and faced the dog, and the dog whimpered with his tail between his legs and came back.
Wow. Then
the entity came back, right? To while he's in a truck, he's trying to start the truck to get out of here. He's leaving everybody. Okay. He's in panic mode. And there was a little bit of snow. I mean, it snowed the following day or whatever. And there was a lot of snow and he couldn't get traction. But the fact is that thing ran so fast that he said there's no way I would be able to catch it in my truck.
Wow.
Okay. So you got to think about it this way. The thing can run super fast, faster than a truck can catch you. All right. From the distance of what he saw this sucker running and taking off back towards the mountain, I would say 2 to 3 to 4 miles from where that mountain was at is a hop and a skip for something like that can run that fast.
Wow.
Okay. So his wife comes out. She hears the tires spinning. He's freaking out, but he's kind of in a daze, right? And she's like tapping on his window and he doesn't even see her, and he had to yell to make sure it was her. I mean, when he found out, he wanted to make sure it was her that was outside before he opened the door. And he's terrified, but he was kind of in a daze. So he's kind of just sitting there in his truck. And so they get the story out and they go investigate, and they see the footprints of where this being ran into snow. And they described it as like a hoof footprint, like some kind of animal, but the strides were really, really wide out, like not normal. I'm not a tracker, but these guys were explaining it to me. So it was night that night. They were so scared they didn't leave the house, and they stayed up all night with their friends and stuff. The next morning they went out to investigate those tracks, and somebody went out there with a Coke bottle and mashed those tracks in, destroyed all those tracks.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Now that is one out of a amazing story that's kind of like the tempo. It starts out small, then it gets a little bit more intense, and then it gets to this point. And a lot of cases are like that. I don't know if it's contact, you get a comfortable distance to where the person's not scared, because in the beginning they were like, what is going on? And then they started talking to the lights. Why are you here? Things like that. And they're trying to communicate with these lights over a period of year of time. And then finally they see an entity that's like, came pretty dang close. So anyway, this has changed their lives.
Sure.
And oh man, I can go on and on and on about the case, but I figured that's the gist of it. That's basically it.
So did this all happen at night?
When that one that was chasing them, the UFO, and then a few hours later, yes, it happened at nighttime.
So it was
Yes,
at
sir.
night. So when he saw the watermelon looking head, I mean, did it have markings on it like a watermelon, or just the watermelon shape?
It looked like one of those gray aliens, but it was, like a long vertical head. I think I have a picture of it here. Maybe I could show it on the screen. Give me a second. I got a sketch of it. They did sketches.
Oh, cool.
Actually, he did that sketch the following day.
Oh, nice.
And so that's great, because when I asked somebody a year later from the incident, could you do a sketch? The memory gets a little foggy and people start adding things that weren't there.
Sure,
Now, he drew this that night, or the following day or whatever, somewhere around that time. Okay. See if I have it. I'm looking. I'm sorry. I'm so popular. I got too many. Got to scroll through a lot of messages. Let's see if you can see this. I'm going to blow it up. Let's see if you can see. If it doesn't do its justice, can you see?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. You see how the hands are sticking out? He said that it ran like a dinosaur, so like a T-Rex. You know how a T-Rex has its hands? Sure. So usually humans, we have a stride. Bigfoot has a stride or whatever. This thing ran with its hands out in its front like this when it took off running.
Wow.
And then this is what it looked like on the truck. Okay. If you can see it.
Sure.
See it hiding behind a wheel with its hands on the back light.
Yeah. Interesting.
And, yes, sir. And then they had sketches of the UFO that followed them. That's kind of what it looked like, with some lines drawn through it. They would change regularly, and it's kind of hard to see. I should have just sent you an image, but
it was a basketball. It was a basketball.
Right.
I solved it.
You solved it.
Just kidding.
Man, you should be a Mufon investigator, man.
I should.
But that's one I'm working on right now, and then I got another one that has something to do with another entity, and I need to get to work on that. And I'm with my new job duty. I just got promoted to chief investigator for the state of Colorado. What over the last 17 years, what I'm used to as being a Mufon investigator is I get an email that says you are assigned to this case, and depending on the category, like if it's like a category 3, I need to contact them immediately. Category 1 or 2, it could be 24 hours. So most of the time I get those, I will fire an email off, say, hi, my name is Jeremy, I'm assigned to your case, yada, yada. What would be a good time to talk? And if I don't get a response, then I'll pick up the phone maybe the next day and try to reach out, because sometimes people don't check their emails. And I try to set an appointment to interview them and see if there's anything that they didn't put in the report when they filled it out that might be missing. And I want to get all the details. And then I'll write up my little narrative of what they told me. And we keep track of how many times, how many email exchanges, how long was I on the phone with them, how much time did I spend on this case? There's a lot of little things you got to do. And I'm used to that. But as for a chief investigator, I'm getting all the reports. Okay. And it feels like an alien invasion. Like I always predicted, like if the crap hit the fan, right? My email chain and my phone's going to be blowing up. And how am I going to react to that? It's going to be, it's going to be a lot of work to catch up on all this. Well, that's what it feels like to me, because I'm getting all these cases. They're not being assigned to me. We're supposed to assign them to different people, but it's all new to me. So I think the first week I was freaking out because I didn't realize, no, Mufon's not assigning you 40 cases today, Jeremy. Relax, relax, slow your roll. And I'm still learning about my position. So I just started, and then I'm also on the board of directors for Colorado Mufon, and they all voted me in, which is really nice. So I feel like it's part of the clique. And
Great.
I'm going to be really busy. And I kind of feel like, and I don't have no proof, but my intuition says that the SHIT, or ship high and transport is the correct terminology, is going to hit the fan pretty soon. And I'm going to be busy. So, hey, I've been doing this for quite some time. So let's get busy, right? And I think also the show Mufon, Hangar One, has helped out. If you watch that show, they drop the Mufon name probably 1,000 times in the show. And you can't really buy advertisement like that. So a lot of people are coming to Mufon because nobody really knows. Nobody's ever heard of Mufon, like normal people. Also, I want to show you this. Fire Officer's Guide for Natural Disasters. I talked about this on Red Pill, but I didn't know this, that in the section of the this is sorry for your audience out there. This is a firefighter manual, 1992 edition, second edition. You can look it up. It covers all natural disasters from forest fires to floods to nuclear fallout. I mean, you name it. Everything's covered in here. My favorite chapter is chapter 13, UFOs, a potential threat. It's about 14 pages. Wow. But in here, it says what organizations to contact, and Mufon's in here. I didn't even realize it. So I was like, wow, Mufon's in the firefighter manual. That's great. But
so yes. So if it's in the firefighter manual for a disaster that could happen, isn't that disclosure? I mean, come on now. I mean, isn't that?
Yeah. Well, actually, it tells the firefighters that they need to, kind of what federal agency are you going to contact because the firefighters are going to be the first on scene anyway. Sure. And it basically tells them set up a security perimeter. It lets them know you're going to have radio communication disruptions. It's like straight out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It kind of gives you a synopsis. Wow. But let me see what it says. I'll turn to the page real quick. Oh man, hold on. Well, it's only 14 pages. It's not like I'm going to be digging for a minute. But Mufon wasn't the only one that was listed. I'm not trying to say it was Mufon. It had every other, it had like a series of like 5 or 6 of them.
MJ12 in there by any chance?
No, but I think Center for UFO Studies was in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, I'm sorry. If I'd known I was going to talk about this, I would have bookmarked it.
No. I'm glad you brought it up. That's an important thing. For people who are struggling with this, who might not believe, or some people who are watching who are interested in this, and they have maybe a loved one who's on the fence and doesn't quite believe it. Just the fact that firefighter's manual, disaster manual, has 14 pages dedicated to UFO incidents. I mean, disclosure is happening all over if you just take a look, right?
Yes, sir. It's better. I kind of think, I'm not thinking how they're thinking, but I kind of think you don't yell bomb and fire on an airplane, right?
Right.
You just don't do that. Okay. But if somebody's interested in UFOs, you put it out there and let them search when they want to search, but just don't throw it out there on mainstream media, because some people, that's going to pop their bubble and it's just not going to be good. But yes, this is kind of a disclosure. I want to let you know that
Jeremy, wait, we need to pop their bubble. Okay. That's our job. We're going to pop their little bubble and they're going to know this stuff. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, I agree with you, but some people need to be popped gently, and some people will never handle it. It does. Times now are different. When I was growing up, this was a taboo subject. You're crazy to talk about it, and that really made me mad. And one of the main reasons of why I got involved in this was because of that. People need to talk about this openly, and it needs to be discussed. Well, times have changed now because Uncle Sam has come forward, and which they did come forward a long time ago too with Project Blue Book, but you have a generation gap, and over many decades, the young ones don't remember any of that, and you got to start all over again. I'd say the Pentagon coming forward saying they have crash retrieval materials, and they have their own team that investigates this. That's good. That's good. That's a start. But this came out in 1992, and I just want you to know that when I bought this book, this is a funny story. I went to a bank, and I needed to talk to a banker. So you had to wait in line. And so I'm sitting there in the waiting room. It's going to be like 30, 40 minutes. So I just went out to my car, grabbed this book. And so I'm going through the book and I'm reading through it. And I've already read the UFO section. I just want to see what the other stuff had. And a firefighter comes in, and he was not in the normal firefighter uniform. he was like a fire chief. I don't know the rank structure, but he had stars on his collar, and in the military, stars are generals. So he's probably a top dog dude, right? So I just like, oh my God, what are the odds? I'm going to talk to this guy. And so we're in a bank. You kind of be quiet because everybody can hear what you're saying. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, sir." And he's like, "How you doing?" I said, "Have you ever seen this book before? This is a firefighter manual." And he looked at me and he winked at me and he goes, "You can win a lot of bets with that book." He said because we don't want to talk about it in the bank, but he just that's exactly what he said to me. And I was like, okay, he knows. He knows. I'm going to go sit down because I kind of figured he'd be like, "No, I didn't know that. Well, look at this." That's what I wanted to do, but he knew. But yes, that's a good book. There was an Air Force textbook that talked about it was for the Air Force Academy. I don't know the name of it or the year, but it kind of had the same stuff in it for the cadets coming in. Talked about aliens being, oh yeah.
For those who are interested in what they looked like, this is the model kit by Testers that Bob Lazar gave all the
Wow, you can actually see through.
Yeah,
those are the three what are they called?
Wave generators. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And how they would swivel and move to push.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll take the top off here. If I can take the top off.
Yeah, that's what Bob Lazar saw, right?
That's what he worked
at S4.
Yep. Is it going to come off?
Well, don't break it.
It was off earlier, but I can just take out the inner part.
But basically, it had NICAP in here. I just saw it. I went ahead and closed the book. But
here's the interior, very sparse. 3 chairs and 3 boxes and the gravity wave generator in the center. Mm-hmm. And then right here was this octagon shaped panel that when you touched it, it went away and opened up.
It went away and what?
Opened up. It access to the floor below.
Okay.
The gravity wave generators were.
Wow. Yeah, Bob Lazar said it was like there was no seams, there was no rivets, there was no screws. It was like a Jello mold, right?
One piece, yeah.
One piece.
Yeah.
And the chairs were small, like if you remember back in the day at McDonald's where the kids had their little playroom.
Yeah.
And it's like it was chairs for small, like for a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old to sit in.
Yeah. Too small for a human.
Correctamundo. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and since Bob Lazar came out, now of course they've discovered element 115. Mm-hmm. And my background is wigging out. There we go. They found element 115, so that part has been verified. And I don't know, his story's never changed. And
his story's never changed. And
I just think that this model kit is incredible because this is exactly what I saw. I saw this very same craft in 1996 over Chippewa Falls on a summer day.
How close were you to it?
It was, if you hold your arm out, it was as big as my first finger. So it was, in the sky, it was about 3 or 4 inches. Now, I don't know how close that makes it, depending on how big it was, but it was
right.
Close. And it was darting back and forth and, stopping. And it wasn't wobbling or anything. It was just crisp in its movements. Mm-hmm. And it just it gave me kind of a weird feeling, this kind of ookiness, not really scared, but kind of a ooky feeling. And I got the message like, I'm not supposed to see this or something. And I grabbed my video camera. It was 1996. I had a Sony Handycam and I hit the record button. It powered up and then powered down, never got an image. And then the craft zipped off at light speed. And so, of course, no witnesses, no one else saw it. So, I'm the crazy guy.
Of course, that's, yeah. But I don't know how they do it. But they can mess up your camera. I mean, here's a good example. Someone sees a UFO, keeps coming back every day. that's a red flag for me because it's probably, but let's just say it's a real UFO. Okay. And it comes back every day. This person finally is going to catch it on camera. They pull it up, the battery goes dead. And they go, "Dad gummit." So the next day it comes back and they go, "Well, you're not going to get me this time because I'm plugging it into the wall." So they plug it into extension cords and they're ready to rock. We're not going to lose any power. And so they start filming it, they record, and then when they go back in to watch the tape, there's nothing on the film. Okay. I think that's weird. They must have done something wrong. Okay. Next, I should have been looking at the visor to make sure it was in the view. So the next time it comes back again, they set it up on a tripod. They got the visor open so they can see. And they see the UFO. They don't see it on the visor. Okay. But then the UFO comes up in the tape. Okay. And then you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. So you're trying to scientifically, you're trying to use science to test something and then reproduce these results and then do it again and see if you get the same results. And it's almost like whoever these guys are, they're tricksters and they know what you're doing. And they just kind of move the pieces around to make more confusion. That's just from experience of contactees trying to catch evidence. It's it's like that old saying, when you're trying to get your ends meet, somebody moves the ends. It's always like they got a step ahead. And even Mr. Bigelow and his team out there at the Skinwalker Ranch tried to do the same thing. They point their cameras in a certain direction. One camera goes down, or wherever the event happens, it's not in camera view. It's almost like whatever the entity is a lot more smarter than us, and it knows how to mess with us one way or the other. Whether it has a sense of humor or not, I don't know. Even Jacques Vallée, he wrote a book. I forgot what was the name of the book, but the trickster phenomenon, whatever this phenomenon is, some of it might be. This is kind of crazy. I'm going to try to explain this in English. If you had a fish bowl, or you have a fish and the fish has like a 3-second memory, I'm just making this up, and you put your finger in the water. Once you pull your finger out, 3 seconds are gone. It doesn't remember. Well, let's say you put your finger on the fish bowl and it knows something's changed in its environment. You pull your finger back and you've got a fingerprint, and that stays there for a little bit. And then it starts to fade away. The fish noticed the fingerprint. Okay. This is about as best way you're going to communicate with the fish, unless it knows it's feeding time and things like that. So if something is outside of our physical realm, okay, and it can manifest, but it has, I don't know how to describe it. What I'm trying to say is it's presenting exactly what you want it to see, So if you're a religious person, you see Jesus in the sky. Or if you saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind as a kid growing up, and it shows you these objects, or vice versa. It could be something to that effect too. And I know that's stretching it a little bit, but we don't know what we're dealing with. I'll be totally honest with you. We know UFOs are real.
Right.
And you and I know it's a national security issue.
Yes.
But when you try to figure out what the motives are, why they're here, what do they want? It's speculation. At least for me, for a civilian that doesn't have the need to know clearance or whatever, I could just sit here all day and speculate what if. Well, that's not scientific. So if you want to be scientific, it's going to stop real quick. You're going to get to a point to where you can't. Okay, somebody gets abducted, you get their car, you scan their car with every type of device you could think of, radiation, and it doesn't matter. And the only thing you get is a high electromagnetic radiation coming off the windshield. Okay, well, you got something. You got some evidence, but what does that mean? And where do you go with that?
Yeah.
I guess you could just say that these people are telling the truth, because there shouldn't be a high electromagnetic radiation coming off a damn windshield. It shouldn't be doing that in the first place, especially 3 weeks after the incident.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, there's one case, this woman in Canada, British Columbia, Dorothy Izat, and I've talked about her on my show before. There was a movie Frank Longo did called Capturing the Light, and Peter Cattell did a book called Contact with Beings of Light, the true story of Dorothy Izat. And she's got over 30,000 feet of footage in her home movie camera. And in this footage, there's aliens. You can see their arms on a control panel in the ship. She's got pictures of the ships, the creatures like looking out of the ship at her. And then she gets, because it's a home movie thing, she's just got this, you know, home
What kind of
movie.
camera was it?
It's an old-fashioned home movie camera,
Okay.
film. And so what happens is she gets these anomalies on one frame. There's 16 frames per second. There'll be one frame that has all these light trails.
Hmm.
And is it her jiggling her thing? No, because it wouldn't be in just one frame. And some of these images actually paint a picture. And one of the images it paints is this picture of a woman with children all around her. And very, very interesting. So
I
yeah.
have to check that out. I'm so sorry. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah,
There's
well,
some.
she was popular back in the 70s. And then she was visited by J. Allen Hynek. He saw her footage and said his advice to her was, keep gathering your information until you have so much that no one can say anything negative about it. And
Wow.
that's when then Peter Gattila did that book, and then Frank Longo did the movie Capturing the Light.
Hmm.
But they focused mainly on just that light phenomenon on one frame. There's many other things to her story, but yeah, the idea that they know you're photographing them and they can, with light, paint a picture for you in a single frame, that takes a level of intelligence that we just are not
Or a
at.
level of technology. Okay, these ships fly using space-time. Okay, so it's basically a time machine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not the way Back to the Future, the way we think of it, but that's how they travel through space. So I always wondered, could a UFO hover above someone's house? Let's say like you never left your house. You're living in the same house that you were as a kid. Okay, just theoretically. And they could rewind you like a VCR tape back and forth and watch you
Yeah.
grow up in your development and everything in a matter of nothing for them, which is a lifetime for us, because they control their own space-time.
Yeah.
And who's to say that they knew that she was going to do that before she even knew that she was going to do that? And they
Right.
did that.
Right.
I mean, you got to try to wonder, how the heck did they get to? I mean, UFOs are so beyond. Now I'm trying to find the words. It just doesn't make sense. Some of the things that they can do and how they
Right.
do it. It's
Yeah.
beyond us.
It really doesn't make sense. Now, there was one other case that's featured in her book, the book where back in the 70s, she had some Japanese people come to visit her about the story, and they wanted to see something. They didn't see anything. They went to a fair. And while they were at this fair, Dorothy kind of left outside of the gates a little bit, and this craft came right above her, and they made one of the panels clear, and they were waving at her. And she took out her camera and she filmed them waving at her in the craft. When she got that film back, because you have to send it in and get it developed, when it came back on that footage, it showed her filming the craft. So she filmed herself filming the craft somehow. She was so close to the craft that maybe some kind of time violation happened.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So it even says in the firefighter manuals, don't get too close to UFOs, because they don't use this term anymore, but they call it the Oz factor. You can look in like a UFO encyclopedia, and it has all the terminologies. But basically, if these ships control their own space-time, there's a field that's around it, and people that get close, let's say like you want to get close to this UFO, you've only stood there in your mind for a minute and you back away and 4 hours went by. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you're telling me that she was filming, but it was showing behind her?
She was filming herself filming the craft.
Okay. Yeah, she's in one of those. She got two. That thing must have been really close. How close do you think that sucker was?
She said it was like only like 20 feet away. It was very close to her.
That's real close.
They were waving at her. Of course, none of the Japanese people saw it that came all that way from Japan.
Wow, man.
None of them saw it, but she saw it.
She would be a contactee, period. The definition of what that is. That's a positive experience, positive ongoing experience and relationship with this. Now, I would say abductions is not positive, but because you're being taken at your will by a different type. But let me back up. What kind, these entities, were they grays, or were they blonde hair, blue eyes, or were they insectoids, lizards, robots? What?
It looked like grays. A lot of her footage is very fuzzy because it's just home movie footage.
Okay.
is not real super clear.
Interesting.
But yeah,
Interesting.
hold on a second. I'm gonna grab the DVD.
Yeah, go for it.
Here it is. Capturing the Light, 30,000 Feet of Proof. And that's like her home movie by Frank Longo. And he actually won an award for this movie.
Well, I want it. Capturing the Light. I wonder if I can order it off Amazon.
I'm sure you can. Yeah. Capturing the Light.
Capturing the Light.
Since 1974, mother and grandmother Dorothy
Sorry, go ahead.
Izat has been filming otherworldly images in the sky with her home 8mm camera.
That's got a 4.
Yeah, 4 stars.
It's got a 4-star, man. Yeah,
it's great because she has been doing this since the 70s. Okay, and her kids
still, is she still alive today?
I don't know. She's very old.
Okay.
But her kids never believed her. One day her daughter was at her house when she was grown, and Dorothy said, "Oh, they're here," because she gets this mental.
Yeah, she's a contactee.
Thing.
Yep.
And she goes, "Do you want to go see him?" She goes, "Oh, sure." And they went out on the deck behind the house, and she saw it. Her daughter saw it, and she was just blown away. And in this movie, it's a great movie because as they were filming the daughter talking about this event in the kitchen, there's a craft in the window that they catch. The movie people didn't even see it when they were filming it. And when they brought the movie back to the family for like a big dinner and they're going to watch the movie, they watched it and their moms are like, oh, all of the sons and daughters and daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws who didn't believe her all these years were like, whoa, what's that? And they went, oh, maybe it's a light on the mountain. They went up, no, it couldn't be that because and they were just trying to rectify this, and if they couldn't do it. It's a great film for someone just starting out, and Dorothy's a very, very important.
I want your audience to know through my experience that she's not the only one. There's many, many, many people, you'd be surprised, that have ongoing experiences and they feel it when it comes, just like what you described. They have eyewitnesses and photographs and shoot, I don't know what it just happens often. It's not like winning the lotto. Okay. But people keep it to themselves because it's a taboo subject and you don't want to go to your job. And especially if you're a pilot, you don't want to, say things like that because then they think you're crazy and they don't want you flying airplanes. You're putting people's lives at jeopardy and they'll ground you. There's a lot of reasons. The stigma. Yeah. But the reason I think we're going to get to a critical point where that's all going to be gone. Okay. And everybody's going to want information about this.
Yes.
I could tell right away with the Pentagon release and all that, there are people that would not talk about this or talking about this stuff. And because it's like, oh, if it's on TV and the mainstream media says it's got to be true. So everybody backs it, but this has been going on for quite some time. And I think, I understand. I don't know who's in charge of all this, but the drip is getting a little bit more to the point to where we're all going to have the critical mass is all going to be on board on this. And we're going to get past that stigma and we're going to want to know. And that's when good things are going to happen. What I mean is by want to know is people get off their butts and try to figure out what this is.
Right.
Instead of waiting on an answer for Uncle Sam, who's only going to throw you a crumb because it's all secret. And I guarantee you, not everybody has the answers. I wouldn't be surprised, but they know a lot more than we do.
Yeah. I think that they're going to be talking about this Tic Tac video for as long as they've been talking about Roswell. So it's up to us to get the word out.
I have a problem with that Tic Tac video, but that's just me, and I get attacked for it, but I don't care.
Yeah. So what's your problem with it?
Well, I think it's one of ours.
Yeah, could be, sure.
And I can get into reasons why, but don't just because a pilot who's a commander says that he sees something that he can't explain, he didn't have the clearance, he didn't have the need to know, he wasn't read in. Right. That could be Lockheed Martin. I'm just speculating. It could be a high-tech drone that can go water, air, and space.
Well, now
And
that Russia has a tic tac shaped craft they're coming out with that has remarkable,
mhm,
all electric, and it can go hundreds of miles and very fast.
well, there
So,
you go, right?
yeah, right.
It's what the Tic Tac is described. It looks just like a Tic Tac, but under the bottom of it, it has this like bar that comes down and it goes like this. It's like a backwards L. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Have you noticed that? Did you ever notice that on the Tic Tac? Is what they
No,
described when they drew it? I could have sworn that's what was on there. Maybe I'm wrong.
okay.
But I do trust, pilots are up there all the time and he can ID every type of jet that he's seen with his own eyes, and he's never seen that before. And the fact that it's doing ping pong maneuvers
Hmm.
at a really fast rate and they're clocking it going all the way up in outer space, do you
Hmm.
think somebody's on board? Do you think that might be a drone? Because the inertia would really kill somebody. I would think going that quick, especially
Unless,
dropping a mile a second,
unless they have their own specific gravity.
or they have an anti-inertia device or something, right?
Right, they're commanding their own gravity field.
But he wasn't armed. He was out there doing training, and then it went to a real world situation. Why
Mhm.
didn't they send somebody up there that was armed? I just it just kind of bothers me a little bit. You don't send your troops out into a real world situation with dummy rounds.
Mhm.
Maybe to do a recon, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm speculating a little too much here, but I've argued with people that have said he's a commander, he would know. And I'm like, no, he
Yeah,
wouldn't. Not even President of the United States wouldn't know. Look at
right.
Jimmy Carter begging for the information. Yeah. Just, you got to be in the program, or you got to, have the clearance to know. And if you don't know what it is, I guess it's a real UFO, but
Yeah,
for him, it's a real UFO.
well, there was something like 150,000 people working on the atomic bomb that didn't even know they were working
Right.
on the atomic bomb
Right.
until after it dropped. Oh, by the way, remember that thing you worked on?
Mm-hmm.
Hiroshima.
That's how you keep a secret. You're
Yeah.
only designed to do the job that you're supposed to do, nothing more, nothing less. You
Mhm.
don't talk to the other people. I even heard at Area 51 that in the cafeteria, there's seat assignments.
Mhm.
Okay. So red would be and blue would be for other people, and you're not allowed to talk, So
Wow.
I even heard at the security team that works Area 51, that long row that goes, where they have each of the different ships. They have the Orion ship, they have the Roswell crash, they have the sports model that you
Mhm.
just pulled up.
S4, yeah.
Security is not allowed to look, even though they can lean over the side and look down. They're supposed to walk and not move their eyes. They're only supposed to use their peripheral vision. They're
Wow.
on for 4 hours and they're off 8 hours on their
Wow.
shifts. That's
Interesting.
real strict. Just yeah, good luck trying to. I remember when they were saying they were going to raid Area 51, everybody's going to run out there. I was
Yeah.
like, well, first off, there's nothing out there,
Right.
and you're not even going to the right location.
Right.
I think I've heard the most important building at Area 51 is the bar. Okay. Now, if you're looking for the UFO stuff, that's down at S4. That's down there in the mountain range. And there's mines out there that
Mhm.
will blow you up. There's lasers that are on the ground. There's devices that can smell you coming. Okay.
Wow.
So you're not going to low crawl like some commando and get right up. You're not even going to get close.
They probably also have remote viewers preventing people from remote viewing.
Maybe, or maybe I wouldn't doubt that at all,
'Cause
because
they do have that in a lot of secure places.
that is, yeah, I never thought about that. But when I went to Area 51, I just want to share this with you. They put on a show for us and it was awesome. But I was having a conversation with this man in front, probably arm distance away.
Mhm.
Okay. And this bird flew in front of us and it did a figure eight. It's a little bird about this big. And it did a figure eight and it went like this and it zipped off. And I was
Wow.
like, well, that was weird. And I keep talking to him and then it does it again. And it's almost like kind of like a bug, like an insect that's like attracted to light.
Uh-huh.
And so I stopped listening to what the guy was saying. I was like, if that thing comes back here, I want to take a good look at that. So he's talking to me and it comes through and I catch it with my eyes. I see the wing bending down like this. Okay. It's a bird, right? But when it bent, I could see a wire attached to like
Oh,
a piece of wood, right?
really?
Yeah, it was a freaking drone. They were flying a bird drone right in front of our face while we were talking. And it was moving so quick that I couldn't tell what it was. So the
Wow.
third time when it flew in front, I just kind of wasn't paying attention to what he said. And I looked And I was like, oh my God, that's a drone. As soon as I said that, the bird never came back again.
Wow.
But they flew that right up to us and they were flying. But yeah, you could see it looked like balsa wood. It had a wire or like a hinge or whatever when it was doing its wings.
Like an ornithopter. Wow.
But it looked like a bird.
That's amazing.
So whatever they got out there.
And that was at Area 150, Area 51?
Area 51 right at the gate.
Were you there like filming for the?
No, but you want to know something funny? No, I went out. It was a Mufon group. So what happened was Mufon did a symposium in Las Vegas. Anybody wants to take the bus ride to Area 51, we'd go. And I went on that bus ride and we had a tour. What's interesting is when we got to Rachel, Nevada, the ladies that work there at that little alien inn, she told me, she said, security came up here 2 weeks ago wondering when the Mufon group was coming. And so they're all waiting for you, you know. And I'm pretty sure we probably had 2 guys that were in security that was in the bus with us because I don't know, I'm military and I know what MUFON people look like. And I can kind of tell that you're sticking out a little too much, but you're doing your job. The security team was probably on the bus with us when we went there.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, I looked at the camera and I said, you guys are doing a good job with security, and I'm making sure nobody hops over because I'm not going to get in trouble. We're all get in trouble if somebody does something stupid, but we just kind of gathered around and then we left. It's kind of boring. But what's really interesting is you get no internet service anywhere out there. But when you get to the gate, you can get on Wi-Fi and you can check yourself into Area 51. Think about that for it. Oh yeah. I checked myself into Area 51, Green Lake Air Force Base. Bam. I couldn't believe it. But they have Wi-Fi out there so they can see who's come, they can, yeah, that's why you got Wi-Fi right there. But only at that spot. Now, if you're driving out to Area 51 and you want to check out UFOs and you've got miles and miles to go and you and me are driving in the car, hopefully we'll get to see the sports model. Well, they got a laser on top of a mountain that hits your windshield and they can hear every conversation you have. And if we're talking about UFOs, they're going to pop our tires. So they got these little spikes that pop out in the road and it won't blow your tire right away, but it'll puncture it to where you realize you got a flat. And guess what? You ain't gonna be able to call anybody. You got a long walk to Rachel. But if you're going out there talking about cattle or whatever, you have a reason, they're not gonna pop your tires. But if you're out there getting close, that's why I recommend if you want to go to Area 51, take the bus tour. They're gonna pop your tires if you get out there.
Drive the car out. Talking code,
or talking code, absolutely.
But tacos. Hey, I hope we find a taco out here.
Did you hear about the guy that got arrested? Remember when they all raided Area 51, or it was like a little stupid drunk fest? One guy pissed on the other side of the fence and they body slammed him. They arrested him right away.
Did they make him clean it up?
No, they took him in. He got a free ticket in. I don't know what happened, but don't mess around with these guys. They're not playing around.
Whoa, you might have been fed to the scientists as a guinea pig for some kind of.
Well, I can actually go further. I have a friend, I'm not going to say his name, but he snuck on to Area 51, went up to the guard tower, saw the guard watching a football game and tapped on the window, right? And went like this and waved hi to him. What they did to him, they beat him up, okay? They threw him in the back of a pickup truck and he sat in that truck cooking in the summer heat until the police came and got him.
Oh my God.
And then when the cops showed up, he gave him a rag and helped him wipe the blood off his face. Felt sorry for him.
Oh my God.
And so don't mess around. Don't walk up to the guard shack and tap on the glass and be an idiot. Don't do that. Don't do that. I strongly, there's nothing out there anyway. So, just, it's not worth it. All the real stuff is happening somewhere else. You
could just build your car to look like a UFO, park it near there. They'll bring you in.
I never thought about that. You know what? Realistically, that definitely would probably start something. You probably get more, because most of the guards are going to hide in their shack. They're not going to come out and talk to you. They don't want to be seen.
Right.
Sometimes when a group is standing there by the gate, a truck might pull up or a van of people that are going home. They will pull off the side and wait till the group leaves because they don't want to get their pictures taken and stuff. So they're actually waiting on I don't recommend going out there. There's nothing out there, but if you cross over that line, you're going to have an adventure. I guarantee it, dude. guaranteed. So
Well, we're coming up on the end here. I just want to say, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on. I'd like you to come on again and talk a little more in depth about some of these
sure.
awesome cases that you're working on. And if someone sees a UFO, they should probably call Mufon, right? I mean, they could call.
I trust Mufon. Where could you call? If you call the cops, and even an own police officer, if they have their own sighting and they chase it and they fill out a police report, when they turn that into the supervisor can be like, we don't deal with UFO reports. So you type that up for nothing. You can throw it away or give it to Mufon, which happens. Police officer said my supervisor wouldn't accept it. Here you guys go. Okay. Wow. But it's okay. So to answer your question, MUFON is the largest UFO organization, civilian organization in the world. It's international, and it's growing. So what happens is when you fill out a UFO report, you will be investigated. Now, if you go to Nightcap, or not Nightcap, what was the other one called? They'll just take your reports, but they don't investigate. So you'll actually have an investigator.
Heavens Above.
No, Heavens Above is the website. I'm thinking of, oh my God, he's on Coast to Coast every night. The National UFO Reporting Center. They will take your report, but they don't investigate. Okay. So if if you want to be investigated or you typed up a paragraph, but there's a lot more to it, you'll have somebody call and they'll finish the report for you. They'll fill it out. And I'm one of those guys. And there's a lot of us. And what happens is your report goes into a CMS case management system database. And I think it's important. Some people might argue that we're collecting all these reports for UFO research purposes. So I might want to find out what happened to you. Okay. You gave me the date and time and when you saw this object. You give me the zip code. And I know you didn't file a report with MUFON, but I can get on that CMS database and I can check that year, that location. What has people been seeing? Okay. And I see orange lights, cylindrical. I see, triangle. And all of a sudden I see one that's the sports model that you saw. And it was a day later or that day or early that morning. And so it helps.
Someone else had to have seen it. I mean, there was nobody on the highway. I pulled over on the side of the highway and I just couldn't believe it.
Well, just remember 1 out of 10 people report. So if there's 10 people that see a UFO, 1 person out of the 10 is going to report. Most of the people don't know where to report.
Right.
Some people they want to block it out of their head. I did not see that. And then others, it bothers them their whole freaking life. And then that's a lot of the cases we get is like, I didn't know MUFON existed. I would have filed a report the first day, but I can't stop thinking about this. It's been 10 years. I think about it every day, Exactly. And I want my report for the record. I want it out there because it's just like Clifford Stone. All that knowledge he had is gone, now that he's gone. But thank God that he got on podcasts and got on YouTube videos and wrote books and it's there for us to see. So that's why I think it's important to follow a UFO report. I don't know if I'll have the answer in my lifetime, but damn it, I'm going to try. I've been doing it for 16, 17 years. I'm in it for life. I'm also here to help people that went through what I went through with my personal sightings, and I know what they're going through. Let them know you're not crazy. Your neighbors might think you are, but here to help. And also, the only thing is they ask me a lot of questions I can't answer. I don't have all the answers. I know UFOs are real, but
they're real. I saw a couple of them over the years. So definitely, I know they're real. I don't know what they are or if they're ours or whose there are, but they definitely are.
Well, Aaron, anytime you want me on the show, you got my number, text me, any current events that happened that needed to be discussed or anything at all. I'd be happy to come back on your show. I love this.
Fantastic.
This is great.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Jeremy Ray. This is Aaron Moriarty signing off. Keep looking up, keep reaching for the stars, and peace out. Thank you.